education in its totality. Education in its entirety means understanding science and technology, as well as human and social science. This means multidisciplinary education. The reason why this is important is that in the 21st century, the boundary between humans and machines will greatly be blurred. In this regard, the 21st century will increasingly become the boundaryless human-machine system. Discipline in schools for both learners and teachers should be enforced. Late arrival and bringing drugs and weapons into schoolyards should be rooted out by this generation. Disrespect of teachers by learners and general insolence should not be tolerated. Parents, teachers, and the education department must adopt regulations and procedures to root out all ill discipline in public schools. As things stand, an unacceptable percentage of learners in many schools are out of control. We may come up with a wonderful curriculum, train enough teachers, and build state-of-the-art schools with libraries and laboratories. But if there is no discipline, we will achieve very little. Program Director, allow me to thank the Charlotte Maxeke Institute for the wonderful work they are doing in inspiring, motivating, and encouraging our young people to emulate our stalwart Charlotte Maxeke through education. The Institute appreciates that any collective knowledge gap in our understanding of global economies, our knowledge of human capital competency, will derail our ambition of creating a developed society in the 21st century. The Institute further appreciates that it has the responsibility to assist us to move towards building a meritocratic society rather than a politicized society. We need to invest seriously in education across the board. We need to develop a productive rather than a consumer-based economy. We need to diversify our leadership in terms of skills, race, and gender. It is only, it is only through the portfolio of skill sets across all levels of leadership in our country that we shall have the necessary capacity to lead South Africa efficiently. Lastly, I hope as you move and further refine your program as an institute, you will develop a mechanism to track all students you are inviting to this kind of gatherings, so as to monitor their progress and develop the necessary programs to assist them to assist and help us build a better South Africa. We are partners in that. Let us move away from having programs for the sake of having programs, but may our program change the material position of people invited for the better. In thanking you, I want to encourage the Institute. Continue building, because there are many initiatives of building, but as many that is there in wanting to lay our young people astray. So let us appreciate those that want to build a better South Africa, to developing the future, which is our young people and our children. I thank you. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sylvia Lucas. I think there's a lot for us to reflect on in the words that we've just heard, and to think about as future leaders, future teachers, future parliamentarians. And I would like now, just changing the program slightly, but I would like to invite Mr. Thulasizwe Makanya, who's the chairperson of the Charlotte Maxeke Institute, come up and to talk about the purpose of today's youth forum. Thank you.
Program Director, Ms. Alex Hos, Honorable Deputy Chair of NCOP, Honorable Sylvia Lucas, schools represented this morning, Havel High School, Bridgetown High School, Nobantu Primary School. Special guests we have this morning. Good morning. As the Institute, we are grateful that again this year we created this platform, and we are encouraged by those who were there before us. Hence, you'll find that we always linked to historic schools that produce leaders. Havel High School produced Ashley Green, and he played a huge role in fighting for our freedom and all what we have achieved as a country. Charlotte Maxeke Institute is guided by 4 pillars, namely leadership, education, empowerment, and legacy. Today, we are focusing on one of the pillars, which is education. Knowing for the fact that this is also the Youth Month. Ours is to make sure that we create a conducive environment for our young people to be influencers in a true sense in their communities. And through these platforms, where you'll be given a platform to develop one of the most important skills that you will need in the future, which is public speaking. We hope that you'll learn and also you'll be able to understand what you present in a true sense. Mayor Maxeke, when she graduated in 1901, also graduated in this month of June. She graduated as the first woman, South African woman to graduate in Southern Africa in 1901, June 20. Well, I just want to say the words that she presented when she was graduating. I quote, "I have no mother now, no home, and I know nothing about my father, sisters or brothers, whether they are dead or alive. But I must go and minister in whatever way I can to the great needs of my people." 1,000 miles away from home, she graduated from Wilberforce University in Ohio State, USA. She got the sad news that her mother passed, but there was no communication then after. So this what she presented when she had an opportunity to graduate far away from home. What we learn from that is that selflessness. As much as she had options in life to do things that will develop herself and herself only, but she thought about other people at home that needs an opportunity to be educated. So we want to encourage you as young people to follow in her footsteps in a true way. Be selfless, like Charlotte Maxeke. Be fearless, also like her. Be unshakable and visionary, like Charlotte Maxeke. And lastly, be game changers in your communities. Be game changers in your schools, and make sure that you contribute to the betterment of our country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makanya. I think it's very important for us to remember the historical importance of Mom Charlotte Maxeke. I think we have to reflect on it as young people. When I was in high school, we didn't have the fortune of learning about her in my curriculum. I had to learn about her myself through my own inquiries about who are the important historical leaders, especially women in South Africa. It was very important to learn about her contribution to South Africa. And we as young people must constantly be remembering that and looking at how we can take from values and principles and achievements in South Africa. So thank you very much for reminding us of that, but also the important principles and values that the Institute has, and this youth forum giving opportunity to young people to think about the importance of education and to further our own education. So thank you very much. I would like now to talk about what we are going to be doing as students. I'm also a student. We're always a student. We're students of life. We must be constantly learning. So what we're going to be doing is talking about the question and the quote that we are going to be thinking about in answering the questions. So I'm going to read the quote again and the questions, and then we are going to go into preparing to speak as each school, okay? So the quote and questions that I'm going to be, so on the 20th of June in 1901, Charlotte Manya Maxeke became the first Black South African female to graduate with a university degree. She obtained a Bachelor of Science degree from Wilberforce University in Ohio State, United States of America. During her graduation ceremony, these are some of the words she shared in her speech. Quote, "I have no mother now, no home, and I know nothing about my father, sisters, or brothers, whether they are dead or alive. But I must go and minister in whatever way I can to the great needs of my people." So the Institute has tasked you as the schools to reflect on these words and answer the following questions in your presentations. The first question is, what is the lesson for us from Mama Charlotte Maxeke? Number 2, what are the needs of the people in South Africa today? And number 3, what is your role as a young person? So we are going to break up and do some preparation for the presentation. And then we are going to go into, we've got a few minutes to prepare, and then we're going to go into the presentations. Before we go into the preparation, as much as we are live streaming and there are very important people in the room, you are also important as students, and you mustn't be nervous or anxious. Everybody has gone through this and feels nervous. I'm also nervous with the Zoom and the everything. Don't want to make any mistakes. And we're also of different ages, etc., but we mustn't be intimidated. We all have an important role to play and a voice that must be heard. So we're going to go into that, and then we will come back into the presentations. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Thank you, everyone. This is where we get to the presentation part of today. And I am going to ask that Bonteheuwel High School comes up to do the presentation. We're going to be answering the 3 questions, and I know you have worked out which sections of and how you're going to do that. So if you can come up, introduce yourself and the questions that you're going to be answering. Thank you. Just wait for the what you call it, the sanitizing to happen.
British Program Director, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, all honorable members and fellow learners and teachers. I am Lusanele Jongilanga from Bonteheuwel High, and I will be answering the first question. What is the lesson for us from Charlotte? Today we honor Charlotte Maxeke, a South African social worker famously known as the first Black woman from South Africa to hold a graduate degree and the first to hold such a degree from a US university. We must ensure that her dream of a non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic world is fully realized. We must use her remarkable story to inspire young people to conquer all the obstacles they face in their personal and professional lives. When thinking about Charlotte Maxeke, certain character traits come to mind. She was self-confident, empathetic, courageous, responsible, honest, consistent, and dependable. We as the youth should apply these qualities in our lives and become the next world heroes. Steve Biko and Black consciousness say for Black men and women to revive, they need self-reliance, self-respect, and self-determination. As the youth of today, as Steve Biko said, we need self-reliance, self-respect, and self-determination. The question, what of the needs of the people in South Africa today? The youth in South Africa face challenges such as crime, unemployment, poverty, and most importantly, unequal opportunities in education. These challenges should not be present in the daily lives of South African youth, especially since it has been over 2 decades since South Africa's first democratic elections. Other common teenage problems that teenagers face today are usually related to self-esteem and body image, stress, and bullying. For us to become somebody, we need self-esteem, self-reliance, and self-respect. As the youth growing up in Bonteheuwel, for me not to fall in gangsterism, I need education, self-direction, and focus. With all these issues, you can just imagine the needs of the people in South Africa today. Thank you.
Greetings, honorable members. My name is Ethan Osborne and I'm presenting Bonteheuwel High. My question I'll be answering today is, what is the role today as a young person? Our role as future leaders is to simply renew our identity, our culture, system, and our roots. We must refresh and maintain the foundation that Ashley Kriel, Anton Frans, and Hector Peters have laid. We have a role to renew and refresh the current status of our society, including leadership, innovations, skills, etc. We are expected to advance the current technology, education, politics, peace of our country. Conclude.
Thank you very much, Honorable High. If this is the start of the presentations, I'm very excited to hear the rest. I'm already feeling very inspired. So thank you very much to you and your teachers. And now I'm going to ask Bridgetown High to please come up to answer the questions in whatever order you want to. Come.
Good morning, Program Director, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, fellow learners and teachers, and all honorable guests. Today I'm going to be talking about Charlotte Maxeke's background. Charlotte Manye was born in Romokopa in Polokwane district on the 7th April 1874 as a young girl. Growing up in the Cape, Maxeke never allowed herself to become too discouraged by the severe traditional restrictions that bound girls to the home and village. With the help of her parents, she was able to reject such limitations, especially the barriers to formal education. She received a missionary education in the early 1880s. Maxeke excelled academically, achieving the highest possible academically. Her true joy, however, was music.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Oshoma, and I am representing Bridgetown. I'll be continuing Charlotte Maxeke's background. Charlotte was a South African religious leader, social and political activist. She was a founder of the Bantu Women's League of the SANNC. She was also involved in movements and addressing an organization for voting rights for women. She was also involved in protests about low wages. She set up an unemployment agency for Africans in Johannesburg. Charlotte Maxeke was part of the ANC. She was also the first Black woman to become a parole officer for juvenile delinquents. Maxeke is honored as the mother of Black freedom in South Africa. Thank you.
So again, we are learning from students because we also, the program is changing slightly. We're going, I'm going to ask Nobantu Primary to come up to answer the questions, but then we will go back to the if there are other questions that you are wanting to answer from the 3 questions. Has Bontebal covered all of the questions? Okay, so then it will be back to Bridgetown.
Rating Program Director, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, fellow learners, teacher, all honorable guests. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sipoko Fekuta, my grade 7 learner at Nabantu Primary School. Today is a great day for me to be given such an opportunity. I never knew or even dreamed of being inside the parliament. At Nabantu Primary School, we want to thank the Charlotte Maxeke institution for this life opportunity. Mama Charlotte Maxeke was a great leader who never forgot where she came from. She was a trendsetter who lived for her people. Women in the olden days were brought up to get married, but she broke that upset and became a graduate. We need leaders of Mama Charlotte Maxeke's caliber who will stand firm and unshaken. Nothing is impossible if you want to dream and go. Long live the spirit of Mama Charlotte Maxeke, long live.
Good morning to all of you. I'm going to be presenting Nabantu Primary School. My name is Jablile. I'm going to be answering question 1. Ms. Charlotte Maxeke, she was a strong woman, an inspiration to the people of South Africa, a person who knew what she wanted, was patriotic, focused, and had love for her people. You don't have to be in your land of birth in order for you to achieve your goals.
Can I ask Rich Tanai to come up again to answer the last question? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Deputy Program Director and honorable members and teachers. I'll be answering the questions about the lessons we can learn from Charlotte Maxeke. Okay, to start off, Charlotte Maxeke lived in a different South Africa from the one we live in today. Okay. Charlotte Maxeke lived in a different South Africa from the one we live in today. In fact, after it was only 50 years until her death that the winds of change swept across her native land, ushering democratic process that would soon realize her rights she advocated for. Charlotte Maxeke is a trailblazer and a torchbearer in various sectors of society. We celebrate her as an intellectual, as she became a symbol of academic excellence and one of the first women in South Africa to acquire a Bachelor of Science degree in 1901 from the prestigious Wilberforce University, Ohio in the US. She was an advocate for women's rights, a leader and a leader of the first Women's March in 1913 held in the Bloemfontein against the extension of Ravensbrück to a woman. Maxeke was a pioneer in one of the greatest human causes, working under extraordinarily difficult circumstances to lead people in the face of prejudice, not only against her race, but also her gender. Her courage and leadership allowed her to transcend religious and cultural barriers. She was also a visionary,
In 1918, she co-founded the Bantu Women's League and became its first president. The League not only fought against the past laws, but aroused public opinion on another equally disgusting practice: the medical inspection of Black women before they enter domestic service. In today's world, we would define her as an activist of sexual reproductive rights. While being the first Black woman in the many spaces she operated in, she understood that for meaning representation of women, she needed to rally other women to amplify their voices in the struggle for gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
So it will be a few minutes and then we will ask the students to answer the last question, and then we will go into the preparation for the responses, and then we will have another break. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.
Are we ready to start our responses?
Recording in progress.
And also just to say that everyone can take notes so that in the question and answer, everyone has an opportunity to ask a question to each other, to myself, but you don't have to ask me anything. I'm happy not to answer anything. But you're able to, anybody has an opportunity to ask a question. So in the responses, I would like to call up Pontiville High, who is going to respond to Nobantu Primary's presentation. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Chloe Stemmert and I'm here today as a representative of Pontiville High School. So I will be responding on the information I've got out from the primary school. So she was a great leader. She became a graduate even though it was against the rules of her community, and anything is possible. She was a strong woman and she knew what she wanted and achieved her goals. She also helped everyone else in the community and throughout the world by doing this and achieving whatever she wanted in life. So we acknowledge that Ma Charlotte was a great leader with her actions, and you guys are going to, and I want to know what you guys are going to take in honor of her actions. And also what was standing out for me is how Charlotte broke out from the gender roles about what women should do or how women should act. An example as the Kardashians as well, like we look at them today and for even like social media, we look at them and we want to be what they are. And I just want to say that like we shouldn't want to be what others are. So I just wanted to know like from you guys, why do you guys feel and what will you be doing in honor of her? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pontiville High School. I'm now going to ask Bridgetown High to come up and to respond to Pontiville High School. And Nobantu Primary, I know there was a question at the end of that, but we will wait till the Q&A to answer some of those questions. Okay? So don't feel nervous that you must answer it right now.
Good morning to the honorable members of Parliament, teachers, and the fellow delegates, also to the institution of Charlotte Maxeke. Today I will be answering or responding to information presented by Pontiville High School, the high school of the former activist, anti-apartheid activist, Ashley Crew. I should firstly acknowledge that I appreciate the fact that they acknowledged Mrs. Charlotte Maxeke's spirit of feminism, which is quite an issue, especially in Africa, non-raciality and equality, which they acknowledged. It is quite vital to also acknowledge that they also highlighted the point that she was self-confident, which many of us in the youth sector should also follow. They also acknowledge that us as youth, we should embrace what Ms. Charlotte Maxeke legacy that she created, self-reliance, and also what the Black philosophy Black consciousness philosophy that they also touched into in inspiring the youth to be self-reliant. As they also acknowledged and highlighted the fact that the youth challenges of nowadays is crime, lack of skills and education, and also teenage relations such as stress and suicide attempts, which actually they also brought into ways into how to conduct and how to fix those particular challenges, such as in the use of education, inspiration, and also following most vital in the footsteps of Maxeke. As I would also quote the words of that, leadership should be a social call for all youth of society. Despite the difficulties in our society that we face, crime, poverty, and unemployment, which is actually impacting the youth very harshly, it should be those factors that are inspiring us to actually do more, even more than Maxeke did, in order to obtain a society where its youth are at its forefront. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to now ask Nobuntu Primary to come up and to respond to Bridgetown Primary's presentation. Thank you.
Morning to you all. My name is Michelle Matisse. I'll be talking about Charlotte Maxeke. To me, Charlotte Maxeke was a wonderful woman. She motivates me to become a better person. To the Bridgetown, they talked about community, they talked about motivation. In our society today, children of today, we do not motivate each other. We make fun of each other. We do not do something that would motivate others. To me, motivating to me gives motivate myself, because when I get something from another child, they say you are ugly, you are dumb, or you are something like that, I do not take that and put it inside of me, because I know when I take it and put it inside of me, it would make me feel bad and make me want to kill myself. Because children of today, they can make something that will make the parents not feel well or nice. So I encourage all children to motivate each other, push each other, and help each other to become a better person. Because if you help someone today, tomorrow someone will help you. If you push someone today, tomorrow someone will also push you. So to me, when I motivate someone every day, that motivates me to become a better person. And Charlotte Maxeke, she was not someone who you will tell that, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. She would do anything to make someone feel better. And when I first heard about Charlotte Maxeke, I was like, wow, this woman, she was the first Black woman that graduated. And that motivated me. And I told myself when I told myself that, you know what, tomorrow, when I'm sitting right here in front of all these children, I won't be afraid or shy. I'll talk something that will come out of my heart. And Charlotte Maxeke, she was a wonderful woman. She was a wonderful woman. And I pray every day to children of today to just motivate each other. Do not bully or do something that you know is wrong. Do something that you know is right, and keep on doing that, because one day you never know what life can do. So I encourage children of today, motivate each other, get education, because education is the most important thing. education will unlock everything. So, children of today, please motivate each other, push each other, and one day you will not regret it.
As a kind of a young person, I must say, after that and after the responses, I'm also feeling very, very motivated and inspired by what I'm hearing, because it, to me, sounds that there's a lot of hope and possibility for young people in this room. I don't think in high school, never mind in primary school, was I talking about feminism or Steve Biko. And I think it's really important as young people that you are sharing this with us and that you are able to inspire other young people, because this is how the struggle continues. And on that note, I am going to be asking Honorable Nompendulo Mkhatshwa to be talking to us about why education matters, but also to respond to some of the discussions and things that you've been sharing. So thank you very much and welcome. Yes.
Morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning, Honorable.
Honorable. Good morning, Honorable Lucas. I hope they fed you guys. Did they give you guys some tea? I think you guys need some sugar. You know, when there's young people in the halls of Parliament, you want to feel it, you know, because, you know, the matured people that we lead with, I don't want to call them old. We can't call them old. Call them matured people. You know, the space sometimes feels like it's not a space for people as young as you and I, because I am still very young. Ms. Alex, I'm very young, very, very young. So I'm as young as you. In fact, sometimes when we go and interact with young people like yourselves, they say, we're going to go see your children. I say, no, not my children, they're my peers. Understand? Because I'm still very, very young. Are you guys enjoying being here? Right, okay. What were your thoughts like when you, please, like, let's speak. What were your thoughts when it was your first time being here? Yes. All right, so what were your thoughts? Maybe let me take your hand. What were your thoughts when you drove into Parliament? Were you like, wow, or were you like, oh, is this it? Very big. All right, your thoughts? Yeah. Nervous? Okay, why? Why nervous? Speaking in front of everyone, so speaking in front of your peers that are here now. Okay, anybody else want to share how they felt? It's a safe space, so say whatever you want to say. No one's gonna laugh at you, no one's gonna giggle, no one's gonna boo you, because this is a safe space, right? Yeah, that is true. We are live. In fact, I actually, because people think when you're a member of Parliament, then you're no longer human. As I was walking up, I was trying to share this link with my mother. You see, with my mother. At my grown age of 29, I still want to share the work that I do every day with someone called my mother. Because not only will she motivate me to say, well, you go girl, you're doing good, because like you're saying, we still do get nervous. And getting nervous also means you respect the people that you're about to speak to, because the moment you just feel like, oh, I can do this, I can wing this, then it means you take no appreciation of the fact that you need to make sure that you don't waste people's time, right? But also, my mom is my biggest critic. She, oh my gosh, sometimes I feel like she's the whole Twitter in my life, because she'll be like, why did you do this? Why did you wear that? Why didn't you say this? You know, you guys, you people of the ANC, you're not doing enough. And I'm like, I'm also those people of the ANC, mommy. But she's also a member of the ANC, right? So as a member of the ANC, she also critiques the African National Congress, and she critiques me as her daughter. You know, sometimes you go to her and you want to cry, you think you're going to go cry to your mom, she's going to understand how frustrated you are. Then she'll say, but why aren't you doing anything? Oh my God, this woman, whose side are you on? You know, so I also wanted to share this with my mother. So I hope you guys have shared with your friends and your mother and your uncle and your auntie and your neighbors the link, the YouTube link. Did you guys get the YouTube link? There's a YouTube link. You can do that. So after all of this, you guys can go into Facebook and YouTube. I think we should be live on Twitter as well. Then you can just take a screen recording of the inputs that you perhaps made, those of you that spoke, and you can archive that and keep that and share that with everybody else. So that's the nice thing about well, not COVID, but it's some of the strides that COVID has forced us to make as Parliament, to be more accessible to citizens. Because before COVID, we didn't have all these, the streaming of all these committee meetings on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We only had it live on Parliament, on the parliamentary channel 408. Do you guys know that Parliament is live on 408? Okay, at least you guys know that. Great. Any other like feeling that any of you would want to share? No? Okay. All right. So to get into the formalities of what they asked me to speak about, I'm probably going to deviate a lot from it, because when I'm with you guys, I also get rejuvenated, right? My mandate in terms of what we're meant to do here as members of Parliament is reignited, right, by interacting with yourself. So my name is Nompendulo Mkadra. I am the youngest woman on the benches of the African National Congress. So I'm 29 in August. You can send me a gift. I'll send you my address if you want to send me a little cake or something. I chair the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation. I, before that, had the honor of serving as the whip to the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation. So a whip is a party responsibility. So in the Democratic Alliance, they would speak of what they call a shadow minister. Okay, and basically our responsibilities are to ensure that the members in our parties follow the mandate of the parties that we come from, right? It's almost like a prefect, but with a political mandate. Yeah. Then what else? I went to Wits University. I was the president of the SRC at Wits University. I was part and parcel of a collective of young people who protested against the increment of fees, leading to a protest against or for free education. And Alex was also part of those particular strides and struggles. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Geography. My postgraduate qualifications have been in education. So I have a postgraduate certificate in education, a postgraduate diploma in education, and I'm trying my best to enroll by the end of this, well, by now, mid-year, for my master's in education. My dream is to build a school so that, because education is important. And education, you know, someone here was saying youth from Nobantu High School, I think. Come again? Primary. You guys are in primary. Hectic. That's massive. I mean, I thought I was speaking to a high school student or learner, you know? You're saying youth needs to be self-reliant. Yeah, was you right? self-reliant. Where do you know that word from? Self-reliant. That's a big word. That's a big concept. Come again? Am I right? Self-reliant, right? Okay. So when I heard you say this, I thought of the responsibility we have as members who sit in the portfolio committee of higher education, science and innovation, because a big part of education is assisting citizens or capacitating citizens to be self-reliant, right? To be able to have the skills and the knowledge to be active participants of our economy so that you're able to put food on the table, so that you're able to decide how you want the trajectory of your life to unfold, for you to be self-liberated, for you not to be reliant on the grants of government, for you not to be stifled by the inequities in our community. So we want citizens of this country in their numbers to have access to education, because we believe that education can help us all have a better life, right? And then other people will say, but okay, then we have this education, we have all these graduates who have graduated in engineering, in astronomy, in many different qualifications, but they're unemployed. So is education really the key to self-reliance? Now that's where President Ramaphosa then says, okay, well, we as government have a huge role to play to create a conducive economy for people to be active participants, right? To create a conducive environment or economy where private sector can also play their role as industry in catching the many young people that government is taking through school. Because remember, basic education is supposed to be free. No one is, so according to government, all public schools are supposed to provide free education. If your parents can't afford, they are given the right to apply for a waiver of those fees, right? And that's why we are excited, colleagues, about what they call the Bella Bill. Because the Bella Bill, the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, is supposed to assist us in situations where a public school refuses to allow for a waiver in a way that is very unequal. How do I say this? So you have a situation where two public schools, right, maybe 5 kilometers apart from one another, the one must be subjected to having 50 kids in a classroom because of whatever others may think, well, I don't know. I'm trying my best to be politically correct. So I'm correcting myself as I go in my head. And then there's this school, a public school, where it's okay for us to accept that there are only 20 kids in the classroom. So the one can have 50, 5 kilometers apart from one another. The other one, no, we are full at 20. No, we can't take more at 20. So who's supposed to carry the burden? Yes, we must build more schools. Yes, government must build more schools. Government must open those schools that are currently closed and are not being used. We can't have a situation where there are school buildings that are just empty. Yes, government must fix that situation. Government must employ the many educators that are currently unemployed. Parents who can afford must pay the school fees so that we're able to assist the system, right? So that the other parents who can't afford at least can be supported by the parents who can afford, right? But we can't have a situation where one school finds it okay that the school less than 5 kilometers away from it must have 50 kids in the classroom while it has 20 kids in the classroom. And that's what the Bella Bill might assist us with, in allowing the department a little bit more space to say, okay, can you please assist us in taking just a few more kids in your school whilst we're trying to build the school, whilst we're trying to fix that school, etc., etc. Because why? Because education is important. And therefore, all of us should be able to have access to education. Education should not be a privilege, right? And that's why, for example, when you guys finish high school, we want you guys to have access to higher education. So we said, no, the generation of Alex and I said, we must have free education. Right now, government says we can only provide free education to those who come from homes with a household income of 350,000 and below. Is that enough? Does that cover everyone who can't afford? No. But government is saying right now, this is what we can do. We are advocating for government to go and find solutions and ways in which we can increase that bracket. SALS, the South African Union of Students, is arguing that the bracket should aim at least 600,000 at an household income of at least 600,000 rands, right? To cover more, to cover the missing middle. Missing middle being the children of nurses, the children of policemen, the children of teachers, etc., which is many of us in the community, yes? Because education is not a privilege. Because education is supposed to assist us in being self-reliant, to give citizens their dignity, to make sure that people can have clothes on their back, a roof over their heads, food in their stomachs, basics. We're not talking about Lamborghinis. We'll get to Lamborghinis when you want to buy yourself a Lamborghini or you want to live in some quadruple story mansion. That's on you. But what is most important is for us to have the basics, yes? And our education is supposed to assist us in achieving that. And so that is what we try and do on a day-to-day basis. That's why we want NSFAS to work. Do you guys know what NSFAS is? Have you heard of NSFAS? Have you heard good stories about NSFAS? I wish the CEO of NSFAS and the chair of NSFAS were here, because one of the reasons why I'm so tempted to call her Comrade Alex, because I know her from that space. I know her from that space. But one of the reasons why citizens feel as though there is no free education is because it doesn't arrive on time. It doesn't arrive when it's supposed to arrive. It's not accessible. When young people try and apply for NSFAS, sometimes they say their documents got lost. Something goes wrong with their application. Those who then eventually do get afforded, so they apply because they are eligible. So, for example, those who are SASSA beneficiaries at the moment automatically must receive NSFAS. Do you guys know that? Do you guys know that? The system must be able to capture you as someone who's currently a SASSA beneficiary, and immediately you are eligible for NSFAS when you apply for NSFAS. Now, our concerns as a committee is, how does it then happen that this person who the system says is eligible, when they get to varsity, there's some sort of challenge with the system, the person's application can no longer be found, this young person is left in the system, unable to get themselves accommodation, unable to get their books. How? Right? Because this is what makes us feel as though we've made no strides, as though the generation of Alex and myself and the many others we led with have made no strides. Because remember, it was a generational mission. Frantz Fanon says each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. We've done the generations that came before us did their part. We've done our part. You guys will have the responsibility of furthering our struggles. To make sure that that home that has an income of 600,000 and below gets this NSFAS as well. To make sure that this NSFAS works, so that we can actually feel like we have it. So that the next time the new chairperson of the committee will be younger than myself. She'll be 25. We can see her, right? We can see her, yes? Can we see the new chairperson? We can see her. She's 25. She's one of yourselves that are sitting here in this room. She'll be sitting right here saying something different. She will be saying, when she asks the room, do you guys have good stories to tell about NSFAS? The room will say what? Yes. Yeah, so it will be our responsibility collectively to change the narrative. Because what cannot happen is for us to have services that citizens are supposed to have access to, but they don't have access to. It's a right. It's a policy decision. It's something that is happening. It must be happening. So you must be able to feel the fruits of these particular policies and these decisions that government has taken, right? Because what? Education is not a privilege. We all want to be like Charlotte Maxeke. I was so excited when I graduated, because I graduated in a bachelor's of science in geography. So I felt like I was a mini Charlotte myself, right? So I was 20. 23, somewhere there. And 2016 was the year of my graduation. And I remember getting dressed that morning and thinking to myself, I am a mini Charlotte Maxeke. And all of us ought to have that experience where we feel like mini Charlotte Maxekes. Yes? Yes. So that's why we want to make sure that education is not, yes, it's not for the rich only, it's for all of us, right? And it's not only for a particular cohort. That's why we want TVET colleges to thrive. Some of us are good with our hands, right? Not all of us want to be professors in sociology and anthropology and whatever. Some of us want to build the roads that we must move us from here to home, from home to work, to make sure that we're able to be self-reliant. Yes, some of us want to build the bridges between this side of the river and that side of the river to get to school so that we can be self-reliant. You think the professor is going to build those bridges? Who's going to build it? TVET graduates, artisans, right? So we want you to also understand the fact that education is so dynamic. We speak about skills and knowledge. And so the skill and the knowledge. So others can write and conceptualize and theorize, and then the rest of us must take our skills and be able to make sure that we build the roads that we must drive on, the bridges that we must go over, the taxis, the buses, all of those must be built. Yes? The schools that we don't have enough of must be built. The schools that are currently abandoned must be fixed. Who's going to do that? TVET graduates. So I would like colleagues from the Institute for us to come back to these young people that are here and tell them of the opportunities that are available in higher education, so that not all of you rush to UCT when you are finished, but you also think of CPUT, you also think of the many technical colleges that exist, yeah? All right, so I love young people. I would love to have a situation where you guys even talk to me and you ask me questions. I won't stop because we are the future. We are the now. We're not even the future. We are the now, right? And I'm hoping that some of our colleagues will touch on issues, for example, around the young person who said, young people must motivate one another. With the kind of problems we have in our country, if young people are the future leaders, are the now leaders, because you guys have to lead now. There are problems in your schools now. There are problems in your communities now that need you to lead them now. You don't have to be my age or Alex's age to lead, or Mr. Tulas's age to lead. You can lead them now. You understand that? Right? You can fix issues around the code of conduct in your school if it's discriminatory against young people who are wearing hijabs or discriminatory against young people who have afros. You can fix that now. How old was Zuleika? Zuleika is one of the ambassadors of this institute. How old was she when she led that movement? Do you guys remember? She was under 16. I think she was in grade 8. Was she in grade 8? She was possibly 15 when she led that in her high school. So you are leaders now. So as leaders now, we don't have time with all the problems we have in our country of unemployment, of people killing themselves, of gender-based violence. We don't have time to fight against one another because we have bigger problems to deal with. Because if we don't deal with those problems, we won't even live to see varsity because we'll be dead. Because we would have stabbed one another in schools, or young men would have raped us and killed us, or you know. So we need to make sure that we focus as young people, and the focus starts at your age. So we don't have time to bully one another, because even in the bullying, it is not that a young man is going to take your life. You will take your life because you can no longer deal with the pain of being bullied. And we saw that last year, didn't we? We saw it with the young lady who took her life. Your age mate, imagine, can you see yourself taking your life? That takes, I don't know what that takes. That's a scary, scary thought. So we don't have time to bully one another. We don't have time to pull one another down. I don't want to even make it a girl issue and say pull her down. To pull one another down. Young men, stop making other young men feel less of young men. Or what kind of boy are you, busy crying? No, I'm a fine boy. I'm very fine to cry because I'm a person and I want to cry and I'm upset right now and it's okay for me to cry. Because when you guys don't cry, then what do you do when you grow up to be older men? What do you start doing? Someone respond? What do you guys start doing? On other people. Then you become the very same problem that our fathers and our uncles and grandfathers have become in our communities. So we don't have the time, right? So I really love what you said to say we need to motivate one another. Guys, I would love to spend more time with you. If any of you want to speak about anything or invite me to your school, I'm making a commitment to say, we have to come back and tell you guys what other opportunities are available in higher education. As I said, so that you don't think you all have to rush to UCT or UWC. So that's the first commitment that we're making. That we will work with the Institute to provide that for you. But the other issue is that we are available to talk about every and anything under the sun, as long as it's appropriate. Young ladies and young men, as long as it's appropriate. My social media account is, I only have Instagram. Well, I'm only active on Instagram. So my handle is nompendulo_M. nompendulo_M, and we can chat away. I'm not like, other people say, but yeah, are you really going to respond? I really am going to respond. Not because I have all the time, but I think it's very important for us as human beings to be in constant conversation. Because yeah, guys, I can't stop. I just want to, and I want you guys to respond, but I can't because everyone else has to speak. But remember also, you guys are very precious. Young men, you are beautiful, you are cute, you are pretty. Remember, I said young men, you are beautiful, you are pretty, you are cute. Young women, you are strong, you are great, you are smart. I'm changing who we usually say that to. Huh? Young men, you never get told that, oh, point you, I'm Muslim. You guys never get told that, huh? Because you guys have to be handsome and strong and what. But maybe if we told you guys that you're cute and you're pretty and maybe you'll understand that it's okay for you to be gentle with one another. Huh? All right. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Comrade Nompendulo. I think it's something very serious. I know as young people, we never really get an opportunity to sit with somebody in the same room that has the position of power that Comrade Nompendulo has. So when she offers for us to say to young people, if there are questions, she wants to meet with you again, I think it is an opportunity that you must take up. I think if we had an opportunity at an earlier stage to engage very seriously around the questions that we were raising around free education, around discrimination in our universities and in schools, things would look different. So I think we must take that opportunity, because I'm looking at faces and I can see that there are lots of questions that are here. I know Mr. Politics over here has some questions, and I can see that we must engage with those things, because many of you are matriculants who are wanting to go to university or to go and have higher education. But there are obstacles that unfortunately prevent us sometimes from getting into these universities. Never mind the problem with NSFAS, etc. The universities themselves make it very difficult for people who look like us and who go to schools where we are living to get into that university on the hill. I know that university on the hill is a very difficult university, and we must constantly engage as people in Cape Town. who want to go, whether it's to that university, the university at the bottom of the hill, the university on the other side. We have to constantly engage those places because we belong in those places. We belong there. So before we go to the questions, and we're not going to be able to answer every question. So I've just got one thing to say. You see, we can be parliamentarians today, but don't be out of order. I don't have the capacity to be a speaker where I block you from talking. But on this black box in front of you, you'll be able to press to ask your question, okay? But before I get there, we are going to ask Ellen Motor from Harambee to come and speak to us. And it's important that we listen to Ellen because we've been speaking about universities being one option for young people, but Harambee is a youth employment accelerator, which is a non-profit social enterprise building African solutions for the global challenge of youth unemployment. So not all of us want to go to university, but we want to have jobs, we want to be able to sustain ourselves. And Harambee is going to speak to us, and Ellen Motor is going to speak to us about what that looks like for us as young people and to solve the problem of unemployment. We have 70% unemployment for young people. It's a big crisis. So let's listen, and then in some of the questions we can also begin to think about, and when we want to meet again, I also want to share that I'm also happy to meet again and to chat. I think there is a lot of important lessons that I can learn from you and that we can learn from each other. So welcome, Ellen Motor.
Thank you. So what I've learned today from you guys is to observe protocol here, because I was just coming in and started speaking. But in observing protocol, I'd like to acknowledge the director of the program, the honorable members. I'm not remembering all the names and I apologize. The schools represented here by the pupils as well as the teachers, and then the Charlotte Manya Maxeke Institute. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to address you. While I was sitting here and listening, I was very inspired, thank you, and very riled up. Very energized by your presence and your presentation and just the reflection, because I'm a little further ahead in life in terms of age, one foot in the grave, right, than you guys are. But I'm sitting here and thinking, was I this kind of young person? Was I as visionary, right, and as active and an activist as you were? And fortunately, I grew up in the Cape Flats. I grew up in Q-Town. I don't even know where that is. Bridgetown, you must know where Q-Town is. Bontebel probably considers us rivals. I'm just putting it out there, right? But so I grew up in the Cape Flats in the heart of probably gangland, right? And yes, I did have, I'm fortunate to have had people in my life who created an intervention for me to be set apart from, to step out of the trajectory that my peers were on along with me. So to the CMMI, the Institute, the work that you do, I just want to acknowledge the intervention that you create and the platform that you afford these young people to be able to change their own trajectories. I just want to acknowledge you and say thank you so much. And just for events like this, because they mean a lot. I always call myself, and this is not going to be about me, I'm here to represent my organization, but this is just so impromptu, and so I'm feeling so inspired, and I want to be able to speak to you. I consider myself a product of collaboration, right? I have had NGOs who have offered me programs that I could join. Schools, somehow I was liked enough to be able to be put forward for programs. And then the community police forums, right? That also, and my mother used to be a very active community worker. So I think through her also, I've been given a lot of opportunities. On my own, my family would not have been able to afford tertiary, right? But again, an opportunity was created and I was able to get. And I did some courses at the place on the hill. So yeah, so it's expensive. But so, yeah. So I've been fortunate in that regard, right? But many of us are not as fortunate. And it is a constant struggle. And the gentleman from Bontebel, you quoted Steve Biko in one of the answers to Charlotte Maxeke's speech and the question. And you quoted the self-reliance, the self-respect, and self-realization or determination, self-determination. But I want to add to that a few more S's, because you answered that in relation to what young people need and what they need to be. But I want to answer that in the context of the situation of employment and unemployment, right? And some of the things that you're going to need, some of the S's I believe you need is support, systems that work, and sustainability. And so when I have to answer the question, I want to call it the exam question that was asked here, what is your role in the bigger scheme of things? I'm so glad that I work for an organization like Harambee that understands that role of support and shifting systems and fixing systems for young people. Because, and I heard you saying something, I wasn't eavesdropping in your conversation, but I heard you saying something to your colleague as you came in and you were talking about enabling and it's a system barrier, it's a system. And that's what it is. These are systemic barriers young people face when they are trying to navigate their way into employment. So like our program director said here, not everybody's going to be going to tertiary, right? Not everybody's going to find themselves at CPUT or going to find themselves in further education after high school. And it isn't necessarily the dream for everybody. And I so loved what you said about some of us are going to be building the bridges. And I always, in my experience with young people, I largely, especially like within our communities, there's such an aversion to it, to technical skills. And the tertiary qualification is more the aspiration. And that's because our parents, look, when we were locked out of it before, it was something we always aspired to. We always regarded those with degrees better than us. We always regarded those with specifically university qualifications. They are the better ones. And in the labor market, the salaries used to reflect that. And it just reinforced our belief. But the world can no longer accommodate that. It's just not realistic. And I am all for and in 100% support of any kind of movement that supports advocating for technical skills as well, to be received and pursued as an equal and worthy degree. Because, so we touched on some of the stats, right? We were talking about 70% unemployment. The scary reality, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but there's good news at the end, right? The reality is that young people, every year, 1.1 million young people enter the labor market. 1.1 million every year enter the labor market, young people. And of that 1.1 million, only 1/3 will enter into higher education, further education, and employment. That leaves 2/3 of those yearly that either become unemployed or discouraged work seekers. And I say discouraged because they no longer become active work seekers. They're just there, right? Not for lack of trying, but because the barriers that they face is so overwhelming. And so as Harambee, our focus over the next 5 to 10 years, is on that 2/3. How do we ensure that they don't get lost and fall through the cracks? right? And I'm going to use mandate is probably not the right word, but is to solve for youth unemployment. It's to solve for youth unemployment. We want to offer an African solution to this global problem, because unemployment is, yes, South Africa has the highest unemployment rates, but we are solving for something that, if we continue on the road that we are, is going to be a global problem. So a few paradigms need to shift. And that is what we're working on in changing systems or fixing or removing systemic barriers is what I want to say. And we do that through partnerships. We can't do it on our own. Absolutely do it through partnerships with government, with private sector, with civil society. When I was reading the question, I wrote it down because I was asking it to myself. Oh, when it was of what is the role of young people? No, I'm not young. But what is my role? And you know what it made me think of? Is the African proverb that says, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we absolutely need to do this together. So my appeal, I'm not just talking to the pupils in this room, I'm talking to the likes of my colleagues here. My appeal is that we do form collaborations, that we all get behind and fix the barriers, because there are so many barriers that young people face. You know, when I started, and I'm probably not even representing my organization well, but I'm feeling so inspired. When I started working at Harambee, because I've been with Harambee now for, I think, 9 years, right? But I've come from youth development before that. But I was actually in coaching, in workplace performance coaching. But my target market was young people in the workplace, because young people fall off very easily and quickly, right? And in my engagement with employers, with managers, the problem always came back to the young person. Young people turn up late for work. They have no sense of responsibility. Young people earn their first salary. They buy their first pair of whatever they want to buy, Nikes, whatever. And then they quit because now they've earned their first outfit, right? Not having the foresight to realize I need more outfits. But that was the mindset I was in. And then when I started engaging with young people in the context of working for Harambee now, and also with the influence of my colleagues, I started realizing young people are not the problem. Young people are in fact the solution. Because we make some assumptions about young people based on experiences of but a few, right? And so as Harambee, our role in engaging with young people is listening and trying to understand, and then advocating for that young person with the employer who has the same mindset that I used to have, right? Because it's our experience. And so we listen to the challenges that young people face. We listen to when an employer says, Notemba came late to 2 days, 3 days, every day out of a week, she'd be late. Not wondering or trying to understand why Notemba is late. Firstly, Notemba has to come from Kailicha, Site C. This is retail that she's working in, or wherever, and a shift starts at 7:30. For Notemba to get to work on time, Notemba has to take a mapela, right? She has to take a mapela to get her to the main public transport. But she's got to take that from a very narrow, dark road that she's living in. And she leaves the house on her own in the morning. Before that even, Notemba has had to take care of a baby that she's got. So she's got to bath a baby, prepare a baby, to take the baby to the neighbor, which is 3 rows down, right? All of this before Notemba even has to catch her transport, even has to be focused on herself. So she goes and she does all of this, and she diligently does this. And she finds a way, thank God, safely to a public transport. When she gets into the public transport, she now again risks being even robbed in the public transport, whether she's taking Golden Arrow or she's taking a taxi. These are the risks that she faces even before she gets to work. And so she walks in, when she walks in at 15:15 late, 15 minutes late, the employer sees that as Notemba not caring about this job. And because the job that she does is something that millions of others can do, the employer's thinking is, you know what, anybody else can do this job. There are so many people wanting this job. Why are you not committed to this job? But it's not that. The employer is unaware of the challenges that Notemba actually faces. And because Notemba has never been told that you can actually voice your challenges, you can actually try and solve for them. You can actually try and throw someone in. She doesn't ever speak about it. So the only picture of Notemba that the employer walks away with is unreliable, not motivated, lazy. And because maybe he's encountered 4 more Notembas, it is then the picture that is assigned to the entire generation, the characteristic. These are your characteristics. Right? That is, I've given you an extreme, right? Because through working with employers also, we've learned that once employers are aware, they are actually prepared to accommodate. They are, when employees, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you don't know what the challenges are, you don't know how to solve for them. And no employer is going to want to risk a workforce that doesn't turn up. So they want to solve for it. But it's this mismatch of expectation versus reality. So young people, when they enter the market, they have certain expectations. And so does an employer. But neither one, they don't really match. So as an organization, we found ourselves in the position of bridging that gap, right? Hearing and understanding what the challenges are of the young person and speaking to employers about how they can change the way they either recruit or change how the relationship in the workplace is, right? But also how we can have effective change systemically. Not just helping 5 young people, 100 young people. We've got to scale. And so that is a big part of the work that we do. But I am aware, guys, that I want to leave you specifically with an offering also now. That when you leave high school, right, that you do have other opportunities, not just, look, first prize would be that you get the kind of qualification that you want. Education is so vitally important. The one thing about education is that it can never be taken away from you. It is yours forever. Your knowledge that you get, the exposure that you have to something, is something that stays with you forever. Whether or not someone else acknowledges it, you have it. It's something that cannot be taken away. So for me, that's why it's so important. But there are other ways of progression as well. It isn't just reliant and dependent on education, further education. You can actually build a successful career as well, but then you've got to know that you need to build networks. And so this is a good start. Right? Because your networks can also further you. So Harambee is part of a network as well. We are part of a network called SA Youth, which is a network of networks that is dedicated to further the plight of young people in unemployment, in finding employment. It is, and the tool that we use is called sayouth.mobi. And I'm going to share this information because it's a digital platform that I would encourage all of you to join. When I say all of you, I mean those who are leaving school and who are not going into tertiary. But even if you are going into tertiary, it's still good to join this network, where it's a platform that aggregates all employment for entry-level employees from various sites. We take employment that's put in one place. Where a young person, if you register and join the network, you will have sight of all the information there that's available. There are also other resources that address social matters, where you can access assistance if you need, if you're either for substance abuse or domestic violence or matters like mental health. Right, there are resources available there. There's also content available that can help you develop further. Right, learning content that's online. The one good thing about this, the greatest thing about the SAUs that I didn't mention is that it's data free. So you don't need any money to access it. You don't need, and you can do it on your phone, right? And I've been talking long enough. I'm going to give this information to your schools so that you have it. and that you can log on to it. But I do see that we need a break. I have been a facilitator myself, so I can read the room. Yeah. And I think that we do actually need just a little bit of a break. So thank you so much. I will make all the information available. Thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so we have a little problem. It's now 12:25, and we are all supposed to go home at 1:00. And I know that everybody probably has a question to ask. And I'm going to be a little bit unfair and say that unfortunately, because of the time that we have, that each school asks a question. So I'm going to take a liberty here, and because Ellen also saw that there's a little bit of a break needed, we're going to do a two-part thing. I'm going to ask that we break for 2 minutes. And in your school group, even the students who are sitting on the edges, you're going to come to the school and you are going to decide what is the question among all of you that you want to ask and who you want to ask it to, so that we can be fairly represented. Is that okay? Are we together? So it's now 26 minutes past. I'm going to say that we have till 12:30 to figure out the question, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to start with Nobantu Primary, and then I'm going to go to Bridgetown and Bontebal. Is that fine? Are we good? Okay, great.
Recording stopped.
So I'm going to ask that also the answers are very brief. And if they need to be expanded on, that we do it after the session, if that's okay. And again, I said to you, there is a commitment to answer questions and to meet with you after the session. So I'm going to ask Nobantu Primary. The person who's going to ask the question, you can go ahead. Thank you very much. Is there anybody that wants to try and answer from one of the other schools? Bridgetown, go ahead. Thank you very much. So there are ways to connect schools to talk about a big campaign against bullying beyond just one school. And we can connect each other after the session. Okay, so I'm now going to ask Bridgetown now. So Comrade Nompendulo, it's a big question and we don't have a lot of time. It's 2 questions. I saw you sneak the 2 questions in. So I'm going to ask that we do it very quickly, but then while we are getting our lunch and taking the photo, but that there is also a commitment to come and visit Bridgetown High or the other way so that the questions can be answered. No? Okay.
Really beyond the ground. What's most important with making sure systems work is not receiving a presentation that says, oh, this has been put in place, but going and actually seeing whether or not that work is done. So that's one important part. We as parliamentarians need to play our part in terms of our oversight, our monitoring, and evaluation. Departments, like planning, monitoring, evaluation, or they need to play their particular responsibility as well. Then on changing the narrative, I think the Deputy Minister in higher education has really been trying his best to change, because this narrative of saying we need to make TVET institutions of choice, right? Not if I don't make it into UCT, then I go to CP. Or if I don't make it into UCT, then I go to CJC, for example. Or if I don't make it into UK, then I go to CJC. And so that first thing needs us to make sure that TVETs function. That's why, for example, as a committee, we're calling for a bigger budget for the TVET program. The difference between the budget for the university program, so for the university, now I'm speaking like I'm trying my best not to sound like I'm in a committee meeting. But when you look at the allocation of budgets towards the university program and the TVET program, it's very different. We've been advocating in the committee from the start of this administration that we need to see a closing of that particular gap, right? On funding for tuition, it can't be that on allowance, I mean, it's more than an allowance for TVET students versus university students, that the university students get a bigger master's allowance when the TVET students' grade is different for the two. So what we're doing, we are advocating for that particular closing that gap, but we're monitoring the work that the department is doing in closing that particular gap, so that a student doesn't feel like, but I rather go to a university because my allowance will be bigger than if I were to go into a TVET. It's small things like that. Infrastructure development. We're saying your department or TVET colleges can no longer bring back the budget allocated to them for infrastructure. When we have a crisis in terms of infrastructure in TVET, because that is not providing a conducive environment for teaching. So we are saying, in fact, we said, Comrade Alex, that the department must do something about that, about the fact that TVETs can't use their budgets that are allocated for infrastructure. And what the department responded by is providing I guess it's the program, a program that will assist TVET colleges with the ability to utilize their finances overall, but even more importantly, in executing the responsibility of infrastructure development budgets. So those are, I remember I was cautioned by the chair that I need to invest but we can speak more, and I think we need to provide opportunities for us to speak more. In fact, when these two questions you're asking have direct responses, we can actually give you that information in writing. I trust that
Thank you very much. I think that's an important question, and the answers are very important, because we can't all want to be Beyonce or Rihanna. It's not realistic. They can't be, as much as we'd like that to be a reality, we all want to sing or dance or act. Some of us must be teachers. Some of us must be electricians and plumbers, etc. And it's not just through a university that you are able to do that. We must be artisans. We must go training for carpentry, etc. And those are important and valuable jobs that can build and help to build the infrastructure of the country. And we must value that work in the same way as we value wanting to be Beyonce or the Kardashians or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. No, because the reality is it's not going to happen for all of us. I definitely cannot sing and act, so it was a no for me. I'm now going to ask Honorable High to ask their question. And remember, we're going to have a space afterwards where we can continue the conversation.
So, our question will be posed to Chairman of TNF. My question is, what are the future of this plan to inform us and to promote our knowledge about our roles and responsibilities as youth, and also to equip us with the skills and the qualities to become our community?
Thanks for the question. As we visited your school yesterday, our commitment to this initiative is to make sure that we're not doing this program as a one-stop program. Second year that we are here, Parliament, but ours now to make sure that this school, fortunately, we have an honorable member of parliament actually, who has committed himself that we will visit the school and see programs other than what we anyway do as a school and also the community of your area, especially your school that has produced an icon HDP.
So thank you very much for everyone that participated, all the students that participated. I am going to hand over back to Honorable Deputy Chairperson Lucas to give us a closing for today's Youth Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ms. Alex Hotz. I just want to once again express my appreciation to Lasizwe and the Institute for the partnership that we could form, particularly in making sure that we develop our young people, particularly those from the backgrounds that we know or the communities where the schools find themselves in. First of all, I've been very busy throughout with issues of gender mainstreaming and gender equality and so on. And it is always a concern for us that we more and more see, particularly our young boys, not coming to the fore to participate in different programs and so on. So you can imagine how excited I am today to see that it was mostly young men that came to the fore and spoke about issues, particularly of the role and the impact of the life of Mama Charlotte Maxeke. I want to express also our greatest appreciation to those that took out time, particularly the teachers, as well as the members from the Institute that took out time to prepare our young people for today's session. Sometimes things seems to be very dark, but it's just because we don't have access to information, and it's just because we don't have access to one another to actually enrich one another with our knowledge and what are the programs that are available to actually build and nurture our young people. So for those that took part in the program, for the Honorable Mkachwa, I want to say that I'm glad that Parliament haven't taken away your spirit of activism. You are a true activist, and you have contributed a lot to making sure that young people have got access to opportunities, as you have also alluded a little bit on it. For the young people, I don't know whether Honorable Mkachwa told you that she was one of the front runners and the leaders of the Feast Must Fall campaign, which means her activism made people to acknowledge her and to recognize her, and today she became a member of Parliament because she stood for a cause. It is important that as young people you must stand for a cause. If you can't stand for anything, you will die for nothing. So it's important that you stand for something. And that is exactly what the Honorable Mkachwa did. We are proud of young people like ourselves. We are proud of young people like yourselves that actually most of the times young people will tell you, no, I'm shy. I don't want to speak. I don't think I'm ready. You haven't once said that. You came here and you actually educated us once again about the life and times of Mama Maxeke. Also to Ms. Ellen, our kind of activism was really a different kind of activism in a different period. But it's good to see that there are still people that even today, after the democratic breakthrough, in different forms, they are still trying to make sure that they play a role to develop our young people and to create opportunities for them. To you and your association or your I won't call it a business or your organization. We want to express our appreciation. We hope that we will have an opportunity to collaborate more with one another. But I want to particularly also express my appreciation to the program director, Ms. Hartz. I say, if once an activist, always an activist. We are becoming old now, but we haven't lost the spirit of making, particularly I'm speaking of myself if I say old because you others are still young. But we haven't lost the spirit of making sure that we make a difference, because if you are an activist, you will make a difference. So to the children, you are our future. And if the future looks like you, I'm sure we have a very bright future. Let me lastly also express my appreciation to the team of Parliament and the team of the Deputy President's office, Deputy Chairperson's office. Sorry for that, I don't know where it's coming from. From the Deputy Chairperson's office, under the leadership of Ms. Mbulane, we want to thank you for actually making sure that this event do take place and it become a success under the leadership and the guidance of the Institute. I wish you all the best, and I really want to encourage the young people. Education is the key to success and to a better life. Let us grab that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lucas. We are very appreciative of your presence today. And I would also just like to say, I'm not sure why this is I just would like to say thank you very much, students, but also really thank you very much to the Institute for hosting us and hosting this event and giving young people an opportunity. And also lastly, teachers, thank you very, very much. Without teachers like yourselves that believe and support students, our system would be and our schools would not be in the shape and we wouldn't be able to succeed in the ways that we are. So thank you very, very much. I hope, I heard that some students don't want to be teachers because of the experiences that they see some of their teachers have in our schools. And we've seen some of the videos and that type of thing. But I hope many of you are inspired also today to become teachers. Thank you.
Record